Hey, good morning. Welcome in once again to the Morning Exiles podcast, the K&B podcast, if you will.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Glad to have you. Good morning from La Divina. Well, let's in here. Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see you. We are we'd like you to come on out for breakfast in town. Got a few things to talk about today. Before we do, there was a famous shooting. The news media described neighborhood in Baton Rouge on Friday. And the reporting of it has been just But once again, I'm going to point out that it's still really important to speak English, particularly if you're a member of the news media. I'm not going to tell you which major news outlet this is. These three sentences, no less than 4 times. Every time they do the story, they lead with this. So they haven't really caught their lack of proper English. So I'm just going to read this to you. Louisiana State Police is investigating a fatal deputy-involved shooting. God, I hate it when fatal deputies rise from the dead and shoot somebody. Don't you, Kevin? I just absolutely hate it.
I do.
That happened on Highland Club Avenue near Jefferson Highway on Saturday, September 14th. A spokesman for LSP said the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office received a disturbance call. For reasons still under investigation, the EBR SO deputy fired their weapon after coming into contact with the man. Budgets must be really tough. EBR SO only has one weapon. Mm-hmm. And how unlucky for this suspect that particular deputy had it.
Dude, I don't know where, it used to be that when you were going to work in television, you were going to be on TV, you had to have a command of the English language. And usually someone would come in behind you and offer some correction.
Called an editor, or a news director, or a grammar coach, or in this case, a 4th grade teacher. This is beyond belief. I would have thought that many plain grammatical errors in the space of 3 sentences would not have run the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, or the 5th time. Yet it has. So I'm not going to name the media outlet, because when I do, I think it's constructive, and people from the media outlets call and they whine and they get all upset and they say, "Why didn't you call me on my cell phone?"
Yeah.
Well, because the public needs to be aware that you've got people that are making you look bad, and you need to be aware of it so that maybe you can stop them from making you look bad. Hey, here's the whole thing. Kevin, you did news.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask, I want an honest answer to this question. Do you feel that you lose all credibility, you lose all gravitas when you use the wrong word, when you use a word improperly, where you do not have subject-action agreement? After that, I stop listening. I say this person doesn't know what they're talking about.
I do the same. I also sometimes will wake up late at night remembering times that I've used bad grammar in a live newscast, and it's like I'm reliving it, and I'm embarrassed for myself because I sounded like an idiot.
They ran this on their website 5 times, never corrected it.
Oh well.
5 times.
These are young, energetic people willing to work for
next to nothing.
An affordable salary.
Next to nothing.
It's affordable for the employer.
But you know what? I have never seen it written in any great book of knowledge that you have to make really good money to speak English properly.
Nope. And see, I was brought up, told by my grandparents and my mom, that people will judge you. That's the first impression, is when you speak to them. And people will judge you by how well you're able to communicate with them. And if you're not able to communicate with them well, they'll write you off. I have a thing of when people say "I seen."
I hate that one. I hate it.
The point someone says "I seen," it's like I'm done.
Well,
you don't have anything to contribute.
I do. I'm going to try to call someone at the sheriff's department, because if they truly only have one weapon, maybe we can have a bake sale or something, and make sure that all the law enforcement personnel have one weapon. Or maybe they can call the writer of this online article and inform them that the deputy fired his weapon rather than their weapon.
The deputy fired their weapon.
Oh, God.
One collective shared.
The EBRSO deputy fired their weapon.
That's an absolute. Let's get away from the grammar. It's an absolute tragedy. Once again, the deputy has had to use lethal force in handling a crime.
Well, an LSP is handling the investigation. They've been very tight-lipped about it, so we're not going to speculate at this point. The coroner issued his preliminary report, gunshot wounds, cause of death.
And I don't know what our first guest is. It's so soon since it happened. I don't think that District Attorney Hillar Moore is going to be able to talk much about it until more data is known. By the way, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, turn your seat just a little bit. Sure. Cheat to that camera right there.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody can see your lovely face.
Make sure that they don't think we have an imposter
Good to see you again.
in.
It's been too long.
Yeah, it's been a long time. You guys doing well.
I'm glad to have you with us this morning. As Kevin said, it's early yet. I don't think there's anything that we can really know that's constructive about this shooting, other than, once again, it's a shame that we had to have an officer use their service weapon.
It's always unfortunate whenever that happens and someone is hurt, dies. You never want to see any of that happen from either side of it. So the case is active right now. State police are investigating. We were at the scene with the state police. So this will take some time. State police does a great job on these officer-involved shootings. They're very thorough. And they take a lot of time. And you can imagine, we're in Baton Rouge and we've had a number of these shootings. But state police, they do this all around the state. And they're really not paid or compensated for it, and it really takes a lot of effort away from their force and their detectives to do this, because it's an intensive investigation.
But they do also have a particular skill set that makes them the appropriate choice for these investigations.
Well, they surely have at their disposal the State Police Crime Lab, and you do have detectives that have been around and investigated cases before on different levels. So, other detectives, like Baton Rouge Police Department, Sheriff's Office, they could handle these cases, but you always want some outside, independent, third-party agency to do it. It's better for everybody, and that's why it's done this way.
Now, one of the birthday girls are having fun over here. They have a singing candle. I like those. How many years?
Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday to you.
I'm going to go.
God
with,
bless her.
I'm going to go with 29. How about you?
29.
29. One of the reasons that we wanted DA Moore with us this morning is I read a rather lengthy article about Louisiana unfortunately being at the bottom of the list again when having someone who has been arrested and accused of a crime languishing in jail before they get to a judge to set bail or released after the arraignment. And you all have put together a program to try to speed that up. And as I understand it, everybody is pretty much in agreement. The public defenders, the defense bar, the police departments, the district judges. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of this and where it is right now.
So we've been, Louisiana's different in our statutory scheme as to how long we have to bring someone to court to charge them. And it's much longer than any other states generally around the nation. And traveling around, going to different meetings around with different states and looking at their systems that they've set up and their schemes they've set up, when they look at Louisiana's, they think we're back in the woods. So we tried to emulate their systems and trying to get people before a judge as quickly as we can. And this will turn the entire system on its head. It'll be something that'll be a complete game changer from what we've been accompanying before. And so this is new, but we've been working on this for about 2 years, and a lot of effort on the parts of all of the different agencies. My hats are off to the city police, the sheriff's office, all our other local agencies around, clerk of court, judges, they worked hard. So this is what it's going to require. In the past, I've been DA now 11 years, generally it would take us 3 weeks to 4 weeks before we would receive a file, a paper file. Now what we're adding, but that system's been getting better. We've been getting quicker, and now we're getting them automatically, electronically. We're now asking the arresting agencies to give us a report in 24 hours and to give that to us electronically. And you can imagine going from 24 hours, from 3 or 4 weeks to 24 hours. Mm-hmm. We understand that they can't give us a full report, but we need enough information that we can make a charging decision or a billing decision in 24 hours based on what they gave us.
So once you got that, then you can say, all right, we're going to kick this guy or we're going to charge him. But if you charge him, you go before a judge or a magistrate, and then they set bail if bail is warranted, right?
Sure. It may be a little more complicated than that because at this point we still have a regular bail system where a judge issues a bond, gives a bond, and then that person can bond out. So we may get cases where people have already bonded out. Mm-hmm. So we're imposing on the police department a 24-hour rule to give us a report. Mm-hmm. We then self-impose upon ourselves another 24 hours that we will make a decision, a preliminary decision. We're going to charge you, or we don't have enough information to charge you, but we're going to give you a date certain to come back to court. So you're not lost in the system, you're not lost in the parish prison. And what we're asking the court to do, and we yet do not have their agreement on this, we're asking the court to have an arraignment, or at least bring that person before the judge within 24 hours. So at the 72-hour mark, if you were charged 2 days ago, 3 days ago, you're going to be, you will be in court. Your mom and dad, your family, your lawyer knows you're not going to get left behind at the parish prison. You'll be before a judge will see you, and the system's going to be a lot better. This is a complete game changer for the way we do things. It's going to be tough to start to implement, but we think that as we go through this system, and we've had many dry runs so far, that things are going to speed up. We're going to get rid of cases earlier on, because normally DA's offices, no bail and not prosecute around 30% of the cases for whatever reason that is. So we could get to those 30% much quicker than we have in the past. And those people now will be make sure that they have an attorney early and they know what their bond conditions are. And it's just going to speed the process up and make it a lot better for everybody.
On the average, how long was the time from arrest to arraignment?
Man, you're talking, so, 6 to 8 to 12 weeks, and depending on the charge.
Wow.
Well, if we don't receive a report for 3 or 4 weeks, that delays things, and then we have to receive it, make it into a file, read it, do follow-up if necessary, file a bill of information, it has to be given to the clerk of court. The clerk of court has to set it on the court's docket. They have to serve that person with papers to say come to court. So it's delayed. Now there's no service. It takes all of that out of the way, and immediately where we are. Now, you can imagine murder cases or cases where you're waiting on DNA in a rape case. We're not going to have a lot of information early on at that point. So on those cases, if there's enough to charge, we'll charge. If they're not, we will wait and just say, Judge, would you give this person another date 3 months down the road so that he knows to come back to court, and then by that date we're going to have to make a decision one way or the other, or if they're in jail they'd have to be released if we do not make a decision. So we think it's the right way to go.
Well, and as I read in the article, and this is what I'm going on, is that we all know that parish prison is outmoded. It is 50 years technologically behind.
Yes.
So they don't have all the new technology like some of these brand new parish prisons that can actually electronically keep track of the prisoners so they don't get lost, because they do get lost in the system. Mm-hmm. And that there are people that are indigent that sit there for 15, 20 weeks because they haven't had a bail hearing, and they're in there for like shoplifting or something like that.
Yes.
And it's more dangerous for the people who work the prison. It's more dangerous for the inmates. It's more expensive because we're keeping people in prison that probably would have a small bond set, but we have to pay for everything while they're there.
That's the other benefit of this system. So as you also know, we spend around $8 to $10 million a year housing our prisoners out of our parish.
Yes.
And we could save that cost and hopefully reinvest it into the systems, the courts, the DAs, public defenders. But surely what we have found is the people that get left behind at the prison are those that are suffering some mental illness. And maybe it's their family member that put them in jail because they're the victim of their mental health issues, and they just get left behind. We also find that those are the ones that potentially commit suicide more than others. So I think that this is going to have the benefit of reducing that jail population, bring the people back from other parishes so that there'll be an East Baton Rouge parish. We won't have to pay for it. And you're right, the parish prison, we need a new parish prison. This will help us with the size. What size parish prison do you need now that you have this system in place? In addition to what you read in the article and what we just discussed, we also have a grant by the John MacArthur and Susan MacArthur Foundation, which is a pretrial services grant. It's looking at the way we process prisoners in bail and bond conditions. How can we make it even, that it's not that you're not kept in jail based on your ability or inability to have cash money or the ability to bond yourself out with property. Everyone should be treated the same regardless of the money. The guys who are very dangerous should stay in jail regardless of the amount of money that they have. Those that are not dangerous can be let out to come back to court. Those that are in the middle that may need supervision, we could get them hooked up with the right services to make sure that they're abiding by their conditions, get help if that's warranted. So we're looking at a risk assessment tool, which is always up in the air for debate on right or wrong. But so all of that is working all together in this system.
Well, and again, I don't know what the odds are of getting a new technologically up-to-date parish prison. I know it's been a constant frustration for Sheriff Gautreaux.
Yes.
And for our judges and for the DA's office for years and years and years. People consistently will not vote money for a new parish prison.
So eventually we can get a new jail, but one way or the other, and we don't want a new jail by a consent decree because it's going to cost you 10 times more as it has other places around the state. We don't want that on our back. We want to do it on our own, under our own terms, and make sure that we have the right size prison with to take care of prisoners as they come in and get them out as quickly as we can. We visited Stockton, California with representatives of judges, DA, public defender, jailers, and they had a very good system, one that we hope we can use here in Baton Rouge. They have the police come with the defendant, with the paperwork, with the report, and they drop everything off at that parish prison. And they sit around in a waiting room where they're given the risk assessment tool, and eventually from there, they're processed very quickly. That doesn't happen because, again, physically here, we just can't do it. And the process we have in place do not allow us to do that. But with all the systems that we're hoping now to put in place, we think that we can come close to what they have.
Now, will the new Bridge Center, the mental health intake emergency room, will that help with some of this?
So that truly is our goal, and that's what we anticipate, because we anticipate them seeing around 5,000 mental health patients. So right now, the police have nowhere to take a mental health patient that may have committed some offense. And again, generally they're the victims of their offense are their family members, and they'd rather them not go to jail if they can take them to a hospital. So jail's not really good places for people suffering from mental health. So I think that you'll see some change and some difference in people that are that used to go to parish prison that now go to Bridge. Time will tell on what that number really is. I'm not sure it's going to be significantly a high number, but it is going to be significant to those mental health patients that are not going to prison or are getting some help, and we identify their needs early on and hopefully keep them from coming back to prison in the future.
Roughly how far out are we from having the Bridge Center up and active?
Well, we have a board meeting today at noon, so we'll know a little more. We just awarded a contract to a company that has some experience with running the Bridge Center, and so we're hoping that we're operational in January. The taxes do not accrue until then, so we have no money unless someone would donate us the money or front us the money early on, which we had hoped to, but now we're just about, we're in September and the year's moving on. So we really have to get this contract in place and let them kind of direct us as to where we should go. We haven't signed an agreement with any hospital. It's looking like the Baton Rouge General Mid-City, which is right in the middle of the city where we want it to be.
That'd be like the former ER
Correct.
facility?
So it's already had rooms that are pretty much designed for what we would want to have. And so those are all still things that are up in the air and for negotiations. And so we have a meeting again today, so we'll know a little more today.
I think this is very telling. I've heard no grumbling or complaining. It appears that everybody is moving the ball forward, and we're just waiting for the taxes to start come to hit. I haven't heard one negative thing since it has passed.
I think we've had a lot of good cooperation. At the beginning, we probably wasn't as inclusive as we are now. We surely have expanded our board and expanded people that we've received some information from, and that's really helped us a lot. So, I'm really pleased with the way that it's going now. We have, I think we're in the right direction, and we hope to see benefits of this, and maybe we could replicate it around the state, see what the benefits are.
Hey, if you don't mind a slight change of topic, we started out the conversation talking about EBRSO, and Eric, who is watching us, wants to know how you feel about getting body cams on those sheriff's deputies.
My understanding is that the body cams are coming for the sheriff's office, so I think it's probably a matter of time.
But it's helped you with the city police as far as handling cases, hasn't it?
That's debatable, whether it's helped us or not. Body cameras are good for a lot of different reasons. The bad part, that's not the right word to use, is that in the past when we had reports from officers, and let's say you had 5 officers at a scene that wrote a report, it would take you minutes to read the report and understand what they said happened. Now, in addition to looking at that report, we now have 5 body cameras on 5 different officers that may have been out at a scene for several hours that we now are obligated to look at and to see if there's any discoverable or Brady information, and then we have to turn that over to public defenders and courts. So it has slowed things down, but surely you can see what's on the body camera. Your body positioning and where the body camera is attached. Is it on your lapel? Is it on your chest? Is it on your belt buckle? What does it capture? It's really made things much more time consuming for us. But surely it has a benefit. It's on the camera or it's not. Again, depends on your position.
And again, just to make sure everybody understands what we're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is no state or local law that requires police officers to be wearing a body cam, so it really is up to the sheriff if the sheriff can find it in his budget and wants to do that.
Correct. I mean, they're expensive. The biggest expense is storing this data, how long you have to store it for, and then what is made available public-wise, and how quickly do you make it available. There are a lot of rules that go along with body camera.
How long do you keep that?
How long do you keep it?
That data.
I mean, that's an individual policy decision by the department. But do you turn your body camera on when you go inside a house when it's a domestic violence call or it's a rape assault? Can you keep it on at a hospital? Is there a better way to turn the camera on to make sure that body cameras are always on? Or there's some conversations that you have with confidential informants or someone that wants to give you information about something? Is that there are a lot of rules that go along.
Body cam that, yeah.
So there are a lot of rules that go along with that, and
and again, I don't think people understand this is a huge amount of data every day.
yes,
And the data has to be stored in a very, very special way where no electromagnetic field can get to it or anything like that.
in retrieving the data, we go through one particular person to retrieve the data, and again, it's sitting there watching hours of body camera footage that generally is nothing. So they're looking at ways of maybe transcriptions of body cameras, ways to mark a body camera if you're going to take a video of a gun in a car. Can you give us a particular time on your body camera? Can you mark it somehow?
That would be a great idea.
And so those things, but you pay for everything that you get or you ask for.
And I mean, I understand that. I think I understand how timestamp and all that works on audio and video better than a lot of people because it's been a big part of my life, is finding a piece of audio or finding a piece of video. But sooner or later, you're going to get to the point where these officers are going to be very, very distracted by marking this on their camera, by making sure this is happening, and eventually somebody is going to say, okay, now it's getting to the point where it's dangerous because they can't concentrate on what's happening around them because they're worried about the body cam so much.
That's always an issue, and it will always be an issue. So I know that Axon Taser company that have a lot of body cameras, they're looking at different ways to activate the body camera. So one is if you open your car door. The other one is by your blood pressure or your heart rate. If you touch your weapon at any point, your body camera automatically activates. You know, when you turn on your lights right now, it activates and it goes back 30 seconds. So their technology is really moving forward, but it's very expensive to have.
Yeah, every one of those units is like $1,000, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not sure, Bill, but I think it's more than that. But think about this. When you have 500 Baton Rouge police officers or 600 Baton Rouge police officers, then you give them these cameras. And now if you want to give the sheriff's office another 500 cameras, then what are you going to do for me as the DA or the public defender? Now my workload has increased by 20, 30%. Now you're going to give me more people because now I have to look at all of these body cameras. And that's been a problem around the country with DAs and public defenders now having the same personnel, but now their workload has quadrupled, and there's no one to really go through and look at every piece of...
And currently, how many do you have to review that footage?
Well, they just have to do it on their own. I mean, it's not a section that reviews body camera. It's up to that individual DA because, remember,
So whoever's trying the case is responsible for the footage.
And when you have 20,000 cases a year and you have 52 assistant DAs, you know, that is a load.
Wow.
And remember that we have a constitutional obligation to disclose favorable information to the defendant. And so the only way you really know is you look at every foot of it, or you just turn over everything and say, here's the entire body camera footage.
Well, and it's not like if it's a 20-minute incident, you sit there for 20 minutes and you're done looking at it. You're going back and forth. Let me see that again. Hang on. What was that he said?
Correct.
Did he say this? Did he say that? So I can see how it could be hours for something that's relatively simple.
Exactly. As I go back to just reading the report, would take 15 minutes, but now looking at the body camera could take us 5 hours. So it's it's something we're just going to have to deal with, and it is what it is.
What does happen if you get into some sensitivities? You know, does HIPAA come into play if you're at a hospital? Does not identifying a victim come into place if there's a sexual assault and you're the first officers on the scene? I mean, what do? Do you sequester the footage later, or is it not supposed to happen in the first place?
I know the Baton Rouge Police Department has a specific policy on hospitals and domestic violence victims, and so they are well aware, and there's specially trained officers that respond to those calls, so they know what they're allowed to or have to keep the body camera on for or not. And so if there's ever any issue that it was on and it shouldn't have been on, we can surely take a look at that and protect the footage.
Well, which is one more step and takes more time.
Correct.
And the reason I ask is I'm thinking about a case that happened, I believe, in 2018, where the crime scene was the emergency room. That poor nurse at Baton Rouge General who eventually died of her injuries, she was attacked in the ER while she was working, and the police had to respond to the ER.
Yes.
And so now you've got all these other people that are tangential, but as the cop turns, they might have been caught in that body camera.
Yes. And so I don't recall now whether body camera was on or not. I just don't recall that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I obviously know the case, Mr. Truxillo, very well. But that is surely a good example.
One more thing I wanted to get. We haven't had you on for a long time, so I'm kind of rolling through a bunch of things. But the Duplantier murders, they got a change of venue, and I noticed that you argued against that very vociferously. And you know what? I found myself agreeing with you because even though I have followed that very closely, I couldn't still remember the defendants' names until I read them.
No, neither could I.
I'm not so sure that was.
I'm not sure I could recall their names to tell you right now either. It's we will continue to argue that I think the decision is wrong. It's based on zero facts or evidence presented. It's just a decision that a judge made who's no longer the judge in that case, and I think that section judgeships are running for election now, so we'll wait to see what happens there. But at this point, one of the lawyers that had been on the case for one of the defendants has now gotten off of that case, and now there's a new lawyer on that case. It's reset for trial next year, I believe in March. I'm not positive, but you know, it's just a long, complicated process. We just want to get the matter resolved one way or the other.
Well, and again, you know, this delaying, whether it's legal and reasonable or not, is still, you're stretching it out to where if there are any witnesses that saw anything, their memories are now going to be 5 or 6 years old by the time this gets to trial.
That's always a problem for us, is the delay. It's generally not in our benefit. It's generally in a defendant's benefit. This particular case is more law enforcement than it is witness and more technology than it is just witnesses. But surely is one that we just need to get moving and get it resolved.
Have they decided where the new venue would be?
No, it's not. I mean, as matters, we have objected to the ruling and or taken legal action to have that ruling reversed. So again, we're in a little state of flux right now because of the judgeship issue right now.
I don't see this as a change. These guys are not notorious. They're not infamous in the area. So, you know, like we said, most of us don't even remember their names.
Right.
So I don't see where there'd be that big an issue. I mean, certainly it was a heinous crime, and most people would agree with that. But
Yeah.
I think they could get a fair trial here, just my own personal feeling.
No doubt. When generally, so when you start picking a jury, you ask those questions. Do you know? Have you heard about this case? Yes or no? If they say yes, do you remember what you heard? Well, not really. Oh, can you be fair? Yes. I mean, that's how you go through it. You don't change venue until you know you have to change venue.
Yeah.
If everyone said I could not be fair because I know them, they're from Baton Rouge, then it's a different decision. But to just wholesale make the decision without any facts or evidence is not correct.
Well, again, we've had switches now in judges and attorneys, and that's really going to stretch it out a bit.
Yeah, and you also have language issues here in this case, which complicates things further.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we have some viewers wanting to know, and if you can't talk about it,
Yeah.
I understand. Does the DA have, and this is from Kev, does the DA have any thoughts on the case of the woman killed in Sherwood Forest? And can you tell us why nothing seems to be happening with the investigation?
well,
That's in the hands of city police, isn't it?
it is. But let me forget the caller's name, Kevin.
Kev he calls himself.
So, good question. No, that case, the department has actively investigated that case. Mm-hmm. And they try to follow up on every lead. I'm aware of all of the work that they've done, all the stuff they've gone back to look at historically. They work very hard on that case. Mm-hmm. I know you don't see it, and they're not going to publicize and tell you what they do, but surely we're looking for any and all information that we can have by anybody out there that knows somebody knows something that we just don't know yet, and that case is being actively worked. Great community out there. Mm-hmm. They now are locked down for the most part with body cameras and with crime cameras and license plate readers there, mm-hmm. more so than any other subdivisions in Baton Rouge. And had we had it maybe locked down at that time, as it is now, maybe in a different position, but...
Well, and again, not a high crime area.
No.
So what we've got is we're kind of locking the barn door after the horse is so far down the road you can't even see his backside anymore.
But surely the work has been aggressive, and for all different forms and facets of that case. Well, it's
as a practical matter, in your experience, and I know you communicate with other prosecutors around the country, it happens sometimes where you have a murder and there are no witnesses, no physical evidence. It happens, not that often though.
I mean, it happens more than you would want to think, and it hurts. But someone always knows something, and we're just missing that one person. It's hopefully it's going to happen, and hopefully we'll be able to bring someone to justice, give some closure to this family. It's just we're not there yet, And that's a real frustrating point when you talk to family members, when they call me and say, I'd like to come talk to you about my case. And well, no one's been arrested. I'm not sure what I can do. Well, I just want to come talk to you, which is you want to meet with these people, and they're frustrated. I mean, you can imagine your wife being killed, and you want to know what's going on. I mean, I haven't heard anything. Then you hear other murders that are occurring that, well, I know they forgot about my case because I just saw this one on the news, and now they're investigating this. So,
It would seem by this time, though, if there were any if this were a motivated murder, that there'd be some trail of breadcrumbs, as opposed to being a random crime and just somebody that just saw the opportunity to fire and did.
I mean, that would make sense to some regard, but you really can never tell. Every case is individual, so it's hard to tell by that. But it is frustrating.
Someone asked me a few weeks ago, knowing that we were probably going to have you on sometime in the near future, now that we have our crime information centers up and running, all the technology that you and the state police and the chief and the sheriff have all pushed for and all that, are we seeing a spread into the areas that hadn't had crime before of this nature that you all can track? For example, like in this lady's murder in Sherwood Forest, are we seeing
more crime in the
Are we
nice,
seeing more
quote,
pins
unquote,
on
nice
the
parts
map
of town?
that are away from 02 and 05?
Yeah, actually, I think overall crime is down. If you look at the numbers, crime's actually down. So the phenomenon I guess you're referring to is called displacement.
Yes.
So if you put your foot in one area, you may displace it to go to another. That has some support in it. So 70805 has always been that's the zip code that we all talk about. And again, it's unfair to just categorize those people as 70805 because it's a 99.9% of the people that are good people that want to live.
Dads, kids,
absolutely.
just trying to live their life.
And you just have a couple of knuckleheads that are crazy. So we sort of put our foot in when we started Brave in 70805. And 70802 was always competing kind of neck and neck with 70805. And 70802 is right here at LSU, right off of Highland Road.
Yep.
And the so-called bottoms and the President Street, State Streets. That
Parts
number,
of Beauregard Town.
that
Government
number
Street, yeah.
is the highest. 70802 is the highest in Baton Rouge for crime and for murder, for shots fired.
Really?
I don't think that it's actually displacement. It could have some effect in displacement, but we know that we have to spend more time in 70802 because that's where the bulk of it is. In other neighborhoods that historically have not seen crime, surely we do see people pulling on car doors to try to open up to get a gun. And that's where people who live in the so-called good communities that could really help us if they would just lock their car
A lot of my
with the gun in
neighbors in
it.
70810 leave their cars out and unlocked, and there's a gun in it.
And
That's
these,
crazy.
These crime guns we have found through our research at our Gun Crime Intelligence Center come from stolen weapons, stolen guns from homes and cars. And once they receive one of these weapons, they tend to use them fairly quickly. And when they find a weapon that works, they generally move that weapon around and they use it and they stash it in trap houses where it belongs to nobody. So if you have a search warrant and nobody's there to own it,
Yeah, who you gonna arrest?
so you have to DNA the weapon. So we have seen that more and more.
Should there be any kind of I don't want to say penalty, I don't know what consequence
So-
for someone who does not keep their gun properly secured
You will
and it's
never-
stolen and used in a capital crime?
So there's a lot of discussion about that, and I don't think in Louisiana you'll ever get that passed because of how people
But
feel
it is
about.
irresponsible gun ownership.
So it's called owner responsibility laws.
Yeah.
And Louisiana does not have owner responsibility laws. And mainly those laws are if you're a parent or grandparent, you have a young child that lives in your house, and you don't properly secure your weapon, and that child kills himself or kills another. Some states have an owner responsibility law. You are responsible for that child's death. We don't have that. I don't think that you will ever see that in Louisiana, at least for the near future. But it surely is something to consider. Others make it, it's a crime if you don't report your weapon as being stolen. You just say, I'm not going to report it for whatever reason. We have not moved in that direction at this point.
Yeah,
Well,
interesting.
I'm reminded, and I don't know if this is still part of your insurance contract. I'm reminded when I got my first driver's license and my first insurance policy with Allstate, and they told me now, if you leave your car unlocked and your car gets stolen, we will not cover you. And, it made me always lock my car. But as I've gotten older, and like I said, my neighbors
Yeah.
are putting high-quality weapons into the hands of thugs who just have to walk up the street and pull on a car door.
Yeah.
Some sort of responsibility, I think, is called for. I mean, I have had 3 weapons stolen in burglaries years and years ago. One was from my car, which was locked. 2 were when they broke into my locked house and did a complete burglary. And I remember that deputy looking at me, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I'm pissed, but I also don't like the fact that I just graduated these people to armed robbery or worse." And he said, "So you get it? So you understand?" I said, "Yeah, you're damn right I understand."
Yeah, it's an issue, and people can really help us by just securing their weapons, and it is a big part of what we do, and so it's easy and simple.
They wouldn't leave their car unlocked if their cell phone were sitting on the seat, would they?
Right.
Speaking of cell phones,
I don't understand why when you get out of the car, when you park in the carport or the garage, take the weapon out of the vehicle with you.
so we suggest babies that are left in cars that die. You talked about cell phones. One of the biggest suggestion we have is when you have your child in the car seat, particularly in the back of your car, put your cell phone in the car seat with your child. You may forget your child in the car, but you're going to always look for your phone. I think it's kind of sad to say, but and maybe you could do the same with your gun.
Well, D.A. Moore, it's been a pleasure having you. I know you've got to go off to a meeting, but
appreciate it.
Let's not make it so long in between times.
Absolutely.
And we're always happy to see you with us.
Always glad to come back to La Divina. It's a good place to be.
Lovely place.
Yeah.
Lovely place.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you all.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it. Have a
much
good
for
day.
joining us.
Let's do it again soon.
Have a good one. There are other things in the news. Our former colleague and still our good friend Matt Moscona, I watched After Further Review yesterday, and I have to say, it was the best analysis of anybody I've ever seen about the Saints going forward with the Drew Brees injury. Matt.
What did he have to say? Because I know a lot of people are pretty doom and gloom about this. Like, there goes the season, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and
they just don't think that Teddy has what it takes.
Teddy made a hash of it, coming in. But
Teddy wasn't expecting to play, though.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah. So here's what he said about that. He said, look, you give Teddy a full week to prepare. This is the offense we're going to run. You give him all the reps that had been going to Breeze, and Teddy will probably do all right. He said, so we're going to lose Drew for 6 weeks. So he went through those opponents, and he said, okay, we're going to take a loss on the road to Chicago. But we're probably going to beat Carolina because they're not the team they were last year.
No, they're not.
He actually said if Teddy can hold it to 2 losses, 4-2, while Drew is out, Drew can still come back and get us into the playoffs. But it was a masterful sportscast. And I don't know if Matt is watching us on Facebook Live. I know he does sometimes. But he wasn't the typical sportscaster. They're paying $7 million to Teddy. He's not worth a damn, and this is it. He actually took it game by game and talked about the science of it, and it was really a good thing.
Well, Moscona is brilliant.
Yeah.
And like you, I was there in the infancy of the Matt Moscona broadcasting career, and I will say that early on when he was producing and co-hosting, well, not co-hosting, he was producing and foiling for Ed Buggs back in the day on 1300. I said, this young man has talent.
Oh, yeah.
And he has insight. And Moscona he's a sharp one. And the thing is, I think that the Saints can do okay without Breeze. It's not a one-man team, for crying out loud. And they've got to be able to, as Kev says, and, Kev's no doctor, but this is his prediction. Breeze is done. He'll never play another snap for the Saints. This injury will not heal as they think it will. That leaves them with Teddy Bridgewater as their starting quarterback for the remainder of the season.
You forget, we still got Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill Teddy can sit his butt down if necessary, and Taysom can get a lot of yards running, and he's still got a decent arm. But, let's wait until the surgeon looks at Breeze and decides. But he got a ligament. He didn't get the tendon. He got a ligament.
Yeah, but it's completely unattached. That's what I saw this morning. It's completely unattached. It needs to be reattached through artificial means. And on how well will that heal?
I got one of those in my knee.
Did you see the slow-mo on that thing? He got that thumb bent back.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, bent way back.
But do not underestimate the power of sports medicine, particularly when it comes to neurosurgery, microsurgery, hand surgery, orthopedic surgery. These guys are the best, and they will tell us if it's a career-ending injury. And I'll tell you why. Breeze has got enough respect for the team and the coach and the ownership to say, doctors have told me I probably won't be able to come back. We will know that when he knows it.
Yep. And he'll make. I don't think he'll delay making the announcement. I like this from Ashley. She said, Bridgewater's garbage. Taysom needs to be given that job.
Well, if you remember, I spent a lot of time trashing Bridgewater last year when we used to do our segments, our Saints before the game with Carly McCord. Yes, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why they're spending that kind of money on Teddy. He always looks like a deer in headlights. But I think Moscona made a good point. He's never been prepared to be the starting quarterback for a full game. All right, so they're going to prepare him this week. We'll see what he looks like next week. Speaking of quarterbacks that aren't prepared, Miles Brennan did a great job when he came in. When they decided to rest Joe Burrow, because it was, 289 to nothing?
Yep.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of talk about the Saints, trying to get Joe Burrow early.
That won't happen.
It's not going to happen during the season.
That won't happen.
Has that ever happened to your knowledge? A college athlete going to the NFL in mid-season?
I don't think they can do it. I think the NFL has rules against that.
Burrow could be a good Saints quarterback, though. But
Jesus,
I've often wondered. Brennan's been with the team. What now? This is his third year, and I thought, when are you going to use the Brennan kid? Put him in. See what he's got.
Burrow was at Ohio State for 3 years and took the transfer portal, and he was here last year. I think this is the last year for Burrow anyway at the Saints. Somebody help me. The Tigers. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong about that. If he's still got one more.
I have no idea. Is he a senior? Is he a junior? What is he?
He's going to be the Major Ogilvy of LSU. He's going to be playing when he's 48. From injuries and red shirting and special circumstances and transfer portals. Major Ogilvy played for Alabama from 79 to 92. He was always there.
By my own admission, I know next to nothing about football.
Well,
I just know I have an emotional response to what I watch. And what made me angry was it was the NFC Championship game all over again.
Oh, my God.
Down to the officiating. The officiating may have even been worse on Sunday. And I want to know what's up.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. We got Saints fans that are, want their season tickets refunded and all that over the call last year. What I'd like to see is an investigation of, is this purposeful? Are these refs deliberately making bad calls in Saints games to see what will happen, or as punishment for the big stink that was made over their bad call against the Rams last year? I mean, nobody's that bad.
That's an odd reaction. Okay, they came down hard on us for bad calls last year.
We'll show them.
I'm going to come back and just double down on that.
We'll show them.
I don't like to believe in conspiracies, especially in something as entertainment grounded as pro football.
Well, Sean Payton said something in his postgame that I thought was very revealing. He said, if we keep getting poor officiating. Now, he has never, ever had that phrase before come out of his mouth. If we keep getting poor officiating. It's obviously weighing on his mind as well.
And he's not the kind of guy to whine about the officiating. He's not, as a coach, he's usually not a whiner.
Well, last year he said they blew the call. Okay, they blew the call. It happens. I don't like it. They blew the call. But I think if I'm him, I would be remiss if I didn't at least look at the fact as, are these refs trying to punish us over the way we pointed out how egregious that bad call was last year? And by the way, the chief of that crew, I am told, in L.A., was the chief of the crew in New Orleans when they blew the call.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but nothing to see here, folks. Move along.
Nothing to see here, folks.
Move along.
Move along.
LSU looking very, very good. There's some sunshine there. If we're worried about the Saints season going down the tubes, we've got LSU to look forward to.
Well, we got our first SEC game this coming Saturday, but it's Vanderbilt.
By the way, did Daryl Piku send you some information? They've got a big traffic snarl up in Nashville at a major intersection of interstates in Nashville that could create some serious traffic problems for those that are going to be trying to get in and out of the game.
Somebody sent something. Let me take a look here.
Yeah, that was last night during prime time. I got a text from
Daryl Orso.
Daryl Orso. Did I say Piku?
Yeah, you did.
Hey, Daryl. Daryl Orso. Yeah,
Game day traffic advisory, closure of I-65, I-440 intersection, Tennessee Department of Transportation, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff.
That could complicate things.
Well, this is a very complicated detour map, so what I'm going to say is, hey, it's Vanderbilt. Live with it.
If you're going and you're driving, do your homework. That's because you're liable to encounter some serious traffic delays in and around the city. Crazy, crazy stuff.
Well, when was the last time you were in Nashville?
Oh, goodness, it's been 12, maybe 13 years since I've been in Nashville.
I've been there more recently than that, but I mean, Nashville's one of these cities that their traffic is boredom punctuated by panic because they have mountains and they have curving roads and they have rain, and in the wintertime they have sleet and snow, and you can have some serious traffic snarls in Nashville.
But it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the city. I love the area around the city. I love that whole part of the country.
Nash Vegas, as we used to call it.
Nash Vegas. I'm fond of Tennessee in general as a state, although not too fond of their football teams.
Well, Vanderbilt should be a W. I mean, they have a hard time because they're in the SEC and they have academic standards.
Well, here's the comment. It says, Vandy can win if LSU doesn't come to play. Mm-hmm. Now, that's an interesting comment. I love it when people say they didn't come to play. It's like, of course they came to play. You ever seen a team go, well, we'll just kind of go in there and jag off for the 60 minutes on the clock. And,
well, I mean,
then we'll go to a strip joint and come home.
Well, Northwestern knew they weren't going to win, but they came to play. They played a pretty tough first quarter.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. And I thought that they gave it their best against a team that they probably were expecting it was a pretty massive loss, but still.
I think I've said this for years. We should have a smart kids conference. Although I will tell you that Auburn, which has some pretty high academic standards, doesn't have a problem in the SEC most of the time. But we ought to have a smart kids conference where you have the real Northwestern, the one in suburban Chicago, and Vanderbilt, and Duke, and some of these others. So we would call it the SKC, the Smart Kids Conference. Mm-hmm. And they could play, and then whoever wins the conference championship there then has to play against the we take anybody as long as they're big, mean, and fast, and see how they do. But I mean, it's just overmatched. Although they can surprise you. I mean, Northwestern, went to the championship series, what was it, 3 years ago? Tulane.
Sure asking me.
Tulane ran the table. Remember that 26, 27 years ago? Tulane ran the table, 12-0. Mm-hmm. I forgot to put them in the Smart Kids Conference. But I think that would be fun to see.
Now, it's suggested here. Teams overlooking a lesser opponent is not coming to play. Troy, Miami, Ohio, happens at LSU to every coach. Do you think it's possible at LSU even, given how far, their season so far, that they could just go into Vanderbilt thinking we got this and then get their asses handed to them?
I think they had that last week. Mm-hmm. I don't think they will do that with Vanderbilt because, Vanderbilt is not, they are not Auburn, okay? They're not Alabama. They're not LSU. But they're not Little Sisters of the Poor either. Mm-hmm.
Citation, the ULM-Bama game a few years back, Kev says.
Yep.
Remember, Alabama came in thinking we got this, and they didn't have this. So, I don't know.
Well, there are always the fluky games, and there are things that do happen that impact it. ULM is, the ULM Bama thing, that was a complete fluke. That really was. ULM had lightning in a bottle, and Saban's team was asleep. You can bet they won't make that mistake again.
Gotcha.
Happy birthday, y'all. Good to see you. The birthday
Many
girls
happy
are leaving.
returns.
We will do that.
That's what I love about this town. It's like if people don't know you, they know Karen.
They know Karen. Yeah, everybody knows Karen.
Hell yeah. There was another couple of things going on in the news that are worth discussing, not the least of which was, did you watch any of the last Democratic debate?
No, I'm sorry. I can't do that.
Beto O'Rourke came right out and said it. Hell yes, I'm coming for your AK-47. Hell yes, I want your AR-15. I mean, he basically just said what everyone else on that stage wanted to leave unsaid. That yes, the Democrats want your guns.
Well, but when it comes down to actually the time of the election, they will not be saying that. I mean, I'm going to tell you exactly why. I am not going to watch until they get to less than a quarter of a full school bus on that stage. It's damned ridiculous to have that many people in a debate.
Mm-hmm. What I find is interesting, too, is if you notice the ones that were shut out of the last debate have been very, very vocal lately. Mm-hmm. This woman in Hawaii, what's her name, Tulsi Gabbard, she's been throwing, hurling insults at the president because she got shut out of the debate and she needs some press. Because she's not ready to walk from the race because she's been shut out of the debate process. So she needs press. So, what better way to get it than attack the president?
These debates are a circus when you got 4 people. I mean, this is a huge circus when you got 10 out of, 20? Or a couple dropped out?
It's like it's down to 18 now.
That's ridiculous.
It's a clown car.
Yeah.
But here's what I notice about every bit of the Democratic debates that I've watched so far. And don't get me wrong, I have not sat through one entire debate broadcast. Just can't do it. I'm sorry. First of all, the absolute lack of an American flag anywhere to be spotted by a camera during the broadcast. And I don't know whether to put that. I'm not going to put that on the candidates. I'm going to put that on whoever was hosting the broadcast. Do you have something wrong with the U.S. flag? The second thing is, it just seems to be a race right now.
They don't want to display it behind those clowns.
It just seems to be a race right now to see, who can come up with the most outrageous idea for free crap.
Well, there is no reason to listen. There is not going to be anything that is going to make you happy you heard it. This is what's known as shoveling a whole lot of fecal material into the oscillating device to see what sticks. Mm-hmm. Make no debate. And it was the same thing with the Republican debates when they were at this stage, when there were 11 of them. It was exactly the same thing.
Yes, it was. Not about free crap, but it was basically 6 people, 7 people, 8 people, all
free
trying to talk
airtime for people that had no business being there, like Ben Carson.
But what did the media do with the Republican debates? The media basically made it focus on Trump. Clearly, they wanted him to be the nominee.
And clearly, he wanted them to focus on him, too. He is a master communicator, no matter what else. I encourage everybody to read the book by the guy who created the Dilbert, Scott Adams.
Yeah.
Now, he has got some bona fides, by the way. He has an advanced degree in economics and another advanced degree in political science from places like Yale and Duke and places like that. I mean, he didn't go to San Diego State. But he talks about Trump being, as he put it, a weapons-grade communicator. Mm-hmm. But, all this debate stuff, I don't think even the candidates believe that there's anything valuable there.
No.
I think people feel an obligation to host these things.
I've talked to, Roy Fletcher among them, political analysts that say there's really no advantage to taking part in a debate on any scale.
All that can happen,
from local right on up to the top.
All that can happen is that you can hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you're not going to turn down, the League of Women Voters or one of these other groups that really believes that bloviating gets you to good government. Mm-hmm. You know what gets you to good government? Give them each 7-inch knives and see who survives.
And put it on TLC.
I want to see who's
in
tough.
prime time.
I want to see who's tough, resourceful, and strong.
Our time has come to an end, Bill.
Indeed.
So we thank you very much for watching. We're going to push this out onto YouTube. Look for the K&B podcast on YouTube if you want to check it out later, or right here on the Morning Exiles page.
And we will be back on Friday. Until then, have a good day, have a good evening, and come back and see and hear us. Adios, bye.